This is one of the storage vaults of the Film Archive in Norwich. In here, there are 50,000 films about this region. Oh, it's fantastic, isn't it? I mean, in these cans, there are films about fishing, agriculture, the way we lived, where we worked, things we did for fun, and of course things about family life as well. Ah. Oh no, I've seen that one. The collection of films at the archive span nearly a century. It's a portrait of our history and heritage. This is where moving pictures of our way of life for the last 100 years are safely preserved for the future. What about the next 100 years? What's going to be in the archive about us, our generation? Well, I could be in the archive and so could you, because this is Archive Day. At 12 o'clock, we're going to start the first 24-hour video survey of the way we live in the east of England, night and day, because this is the way we are. Hi.
Okay, it's 12 o'clock, and right now, down there, our army of video volunteers are officially in action to make today our video history for 100 years' time.
We have 100 amateur camcorder enthusiasts and a sprinkling of professionals recording the day's events. And while the video volunteers are doing their survey at ground level, we'll be giving you a bird's eye view of the region. We kick off at Ipswich. This is where our first video volunteers are spending Archive Day. Roger is a data engineer in telecommunications, and John is the director of a printing company.
The evening stars to be sold on the ground are distributed from the caravan.
More than 40 years ago, this film was made about a local paper in Ipswich, the Evening Star. It went on to follow a day in the life of the paper at their offices on the corner of Little Coleman Street. Back then, the man at the top was editor Ralph Watson. At the new premises in Lower Brook Street, the editor in charge of the paper today is Mike Pennock. It's just gone 7 in the morning, and he's already on his way to the morning conference. This is where the possible stories for today's edition are discussed. A strong story is already earmarked for the front page, but the inside pages are still up for grabs. Some good news about a local school could be of interest to their readers.
You've done it because they have gone from 3 years ago being a school with serious weaknesses. They've bypassed the satisfactory category for Ofsted, and they're now described as a good school.
That should make it a nice picture story.
Yeah, it should do. We're sending Mark up there.
Staff reporter Mark Bulstrode is dispatched to the school to write the piece. Mark starts by interviewing the headmaster.
We knew it had gone very well. They'd given us very positive feedback, but it was excellent to see it all down in black and white.
Here we see a staff reporter returning from an assignment to the reporter's room, where, undisturbed by the clatter of typewriters and the insistent ringing of the telephones, he sets to work on his story.
But not anymore. Mark's story can be dictated immediately to the copy taker back at the newspaper. Within minutes, Mark's story is in the computer before he has even left the school.
Can you all just take one pace back?
The photographer assigned to the story is Owen Hines, known as Ollie.
I've been there 35 years, believe it or not, so it's nice to come along and see a school that's happy to see us, and the headmaster's quite buoyant this morning, and he's organised the children for us, so that it's going to be good, I think, yes.
Staff photographers are familiar figures at events throughout the district.
1, 2, 3, off we go.
New technology means Ollie can send his photos directly to the picture editor.
We're working well now, it's copying the file across, and we
she'll be up and running shortly.
Oh, yep, got it. That's perfect, mate. Landscape, yep, good. Just move across to subs.
Okay, thanks now. Cheers, bye.
The effective treatment of news pictures is an art.
I mean, the two things you look at when you see your paper on the stand is the headline, which is going to catch your eye, and we say, oh, let's go and read the paper and see what that's about, or an eye-catching picture.
These days, the layout of the pictures and text is all done on the computer by the sub-editor. Glue pot and scissors have been replaced by cut and paste at the click of the mouse. It's quicker and cleaner. Until computers took over, every letter and every word had to be laid out in the composing room. It was skilled work. Even in the old days, the papers came off the presses at a rate of about 35,000 an hour. Today, just over 7 hours after their morning meeting, the latest edition is coming off the presses that little bit faster, at about 40,000 an hour.
Outside, a fleet of vans will be waiting to take the parcels to the local agents or to catch the trains and buses.
Every day, more than 72,000 copies of the Star are distributed to the newsagents.
And the newsboys who will do the delivery rounds wait impatiently for their order to be counted out to them.
We've put on record how the paper has been produced in 2004. But how much might change in the years to come?
In 100 years, I think we'll still be in the publishing business. Whether we're in paper format, I'm not sure. But I'm sure the Evening Star will still be around.
The English village is traditionally built round a central patch of grassland, the village green. This is where village life is seen at its best.
With a reputation as one of the prettiest villages in the county, even back in the 1930s, Finchingfield, along with neighbours Great Bardfield and Steeple Bumstead, was one of 3 Essex villages which were combined to present a picture of country life on the verge of change.
But nowadays, things are different. The wider world starts breaking in everywhere.
On Archive Day, we wanted to see how today's Finchingfield compared with this image of more than 50 years ago. On camera and sound are 2 members of the Colchester Cine Club. They're Lionel Bloomfield and Ken Rickwood. While they climbed the church tower for an overview, local knowledge was provided by their guide for the day, a man who served here as district councillor for 33 years.
If people talk of Finchingfield, they can remember the church, the view of the cottages in the background there, and the windmill. So little has changed. That view is, looking back to 1900, it was identical even then. Perhaps we got the odd television area and things like that, but basically it's the same.
Though on the surface the village looks the same, the economy of the place has changed beyond recognition. Farms which once offered employment to Finchingfield families have gone. Farm buildings are being converted into desirable homes. The village once depended on the skills of local craftsmen, like the local blacksmith. Ron set out to find the modern equivalent. And he found it. Flourishing in its rural environment is a growing company providing services to publishing, dealing with subscriptions and special offers. The traditional craft of straw dolly making has been replaced by the modern equivalent cottage industry, a husband and wife team making collectible models.
Well, I've never seen a woman get dressed so quickly.
No!
If we look at this village, the first thing you start noticing, the lack of shops. There's a good example, the brown pinky house. One time, there was a general grocer's to the left, and to the right was the local butcher's. We had a draper over the other side there, he's gone. Another interesting thing about the general grocer, outside of his shop, he had a petrol pump. I mean, it's unbelievable now to think anyone would put a petrol pump literally at the door of a shop. But that was the mainstay of the village.
The public house, familiarly and affectionately called the pub by all classes of Englishmen, is the one great village institution which has never declined in popularity.
In fact, Finchingfield has lost one of its pubs. The Green Man has gone, and only the remains of the sign are still there. They still have 3 others, though, and the one that's featured in the film, in prime position, is definitely still there.
We've got the Fox still. It's more of a tourist pub now, if I dare say that, because when people see it, it's the right sort of brand. That's the village pub. But, of course, it isn't the village pub as we knew it 40 or 50 years ago.
There's hardly a thatched cottage that hasn't got its radio, and old as well as new cottages are wired for electricity. The young people working in the towns acquire the townsman's outlook and his standards of life. They demand new houses and modern comforts, a white-tiled bathroom with running water instead of the garden well.
We had about half a dozen village pumps, and up to 1940 people were still using these quite regularly. Can you imagine saying to your children, oh, go and get a pail of water over the pump? I mean, they'd die, wouldn't they?
Modern transport has done a great deal to enlarge the scope of village life. The last 10 years or so have seen the development of a countrywide system of buses.
Today's bus service is more frequent and reliable than it was in the past. But like many other villages, Finchingfield finds our improved mobility a mixed blessing.
The thing that now hits everybody when they come to Finchingfield is the volume of traffic. But if you go back to the early 50s, 60s, there'd be perhaps an hour or hour and a half go by before we actually would see a car come into the village. Now we can actually accommodate 230 cars around our village green.
It really isn't a living village anymore. The people you see walking around the village are tourists. They're not the local people. They seem to have disappeared.
The east of England has been well served by its markets. They've always been regarded affectionately as an important part of the character of a town or city. But what about today's markets? Public relations consultant and cine enthusiast Paul Desmond was in Colchester with his camera to see if he could capture character and commerce in the street market of his hometown.
On Saturdays, it is gay and lively with people, crowding along the many rows of stalls.
By 10 o'clock, the market was starting to look like its historic counterpart. On the fruit and veg stall today is Matthew Grandy.
Sort of something that my dad's always done. The hours aren't always the best, but I do enjoy it. It's nice to be outside instead of in an office, really. I couldn't work in an office anymore.
Keith Forge sells country and folk music. He set up here 18 months ago.
Never get rich, but I'm happy what I do, and I take the job along. Got a lot of friends, customers here. Come and see me.
After 20 years, you sort of like, you get a bond with the customers, and our 95% of our trade is regular trade, so we know all the folk that come up.
This boy knows what he's talking about. She doesn't believe a word of it.
The Colchester market has had its ups and downs. At the end of the 90s, they were moved from their central position in the high street. It wasn't good for business, and there were some unhappy traders. But at their new site, all that is behind them. Well, almost.
It's not too badly situated at the moment. I mean, we're right in amongst the shoppers. If ever, I'm sure they will eventually, the council will eventually pedestrianise the high street. And hopefully there might be a chance of getting it back on the high street.
Ivan Ross is another stallholder. Video volunteer Paul asked him why shoppers visit markets.
Why do you think people come to a market like this? Are they looking for bargains or what?
Bargains, but firstly this thing that you don't have to queue in a market. You go in there, you browse a little bit, you walk around the market, you decide what you want, you come back, you walk up to the stall, you pay for it, you get it.
Is it nostalgia or?
No, to be honest, I think it's also a lot to do with the price. It is, when you think about how much we are compared to everyone else. Hello.
Are they nice and hard?
They are, yes. Try one if you like.
No.
They are superb.
Get me a box where I've got lots of firm ones in there, not, you know.
Now that I can do, just to be able to deal with people, rather than machines and tills.
Markets are historic institutions. Colchester's charter dates back to 1170. But will a personal touch, the chance of a bargain, colour and character be enough to secure its future?
Do you see yourself doing this, say, in 10, 20 years' time?
Oh, now that's a hard one, I don't know.
To give them the proper type of future, they must be run correctly. They must, the people who run them, and the powers that be, have got to put an effort into the markets as well, not just leave it all down to the market traders.
That's it. Time's up. Archive day is over. The 24 hours in the life of the people in the east of England has been recorded for posterity. And while I've been rabbiting away, there have been 100 cameras going all day. Every frame, every shot's going to be in the archive. For your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren, to see what you're really like. And that's not bad, is it? Anyway, thank you. Goodbye.